Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to tell you about Michelob Ultra Courtside. It's getting fans closer to the NBA with a chance to win prizes like courtside seats, a trip to All-Star Weekend, and much more. Check it out at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access, Courtside 24-25 sweepstakes, no purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 and up. Begins on October 1st, 2024, ends July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
Welcome to the Supreme Resort, Land v. World, a podcast about Disneyland and Walt Disney World, and which is the Supreme Resort. Each episode, we will discuss and explore each resort, ride by ride, land by land, park by park, to determine which is better. I'm your host, Jimmy, and thank you for joining me on this quest to help the greater good of humanity answer this long, elusive question: which is better, Disneyland or Walt Disney World? Joining me, as always, to discuss is Dan.
Hi, I have my hard candies ready to go, ready to rock.
Mm-hmm. And we also have Eric.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. This listener, here's the thing. It only costs is it $2 a month? Maybe $5. Let's say $5. If you pay Jason $5, you get access to
Jason
all
Voorhees.
kinds of, not Jason Voorhees or Lark Voorhees. You get all kinds of additional content, including After Hours, which is something that we record usually before we record these shows.
Yeah.
The one that's associated with this episode, you may or may not ever hear. However,
oh no,
it will be released
I'll put
at some
it out.
point.
It's an hour
Supreme.
It's an hour.
Oh, sorry.
It's an hour long
Pooping.
with expletives. There's discussion of all kinds of prospectuses from Disney and vasectomies.
Oh,
And Eric getting frustrated. That's right.
Yeah.
Prospecti. Excuse me.
I thought you
I'm
were
really
sliding
trying to
into
catch
Utah
up on
accent
things.
there.
Oh, yeah. Shells. Anyway, welcome to the show. This is part 2 of Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln versus Hall of the Presidents. Because of the sensitive and solemn nature of these topics, there will be no additional sounds or any audio during this episode. It'll just be us talking because we'd like to respect the solemn
The sanctity of
these two attractions.
Yep.
So there will be no additional audio, no sounds. And
just
including the
sounds
sounds of our voices. Yeah. Yeah.
that's it. No, seriously. So I don't think we have any preamble. We just talk to each other for an hour. So if you want to hear us ramble, go listen to After Hours at patreon.com/ears up.
Yeah.
Will we
And
see a penny? No, we will not.
No.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So
Might
for
see a dime.
context, listen to the episode before this one.
Yeah.
It's
There
a
you go.
continuation.
We go through the
seen
history. We
continuations.
talk about history of animation, animatronics, etc.
Jimmy, what did you learn? No, I'm going to do what I do to Eric on Bowie's
Okay.
Planning. What did you learn, and why should they listen to the previous episode?
I learned that animatronics didn't come out of nowhere. There
Mhm.
was origins decades before audio animatronics, specifically Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln and Lincoln Robot. There was animations all the way back to Steamboat Willie and the first sound synchronized cartoon. And they're like, hey, we could do that with other things like Silly Symphonies and Fantasia. Right. And then it evolved to other things like Talking Birds and whatnot to get us to where we have Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln from the 64 World's Fair.
Right.
And then Eric said a bunch of stuff too.
Probably.
Well, and
Sounds
also,
like me.
they don't like to be called robots. That's an important thing.
They prefer not to be called
Oh,
robots.
gosh,
They will
yeah,
accept it
please.
for now. The first AI Lincoln. That's what I'm looking forward to. Okay, so Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln and Hall of Presidents. I think, you know what? I've changed my mind. Why don't we have point sounds just in case? I don't know if you need to download those or what needs to happen.
they're loaded.
Oh, good. You had time.
Yeah.
Okay, then in that case, if Dan, who's arguing for Disneyland, i.e. Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln, if he says something I enjoy, you'll hear this sound.
Vampires are not the only things that live forever.
Right.
Which is, of course, from
the documentary Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Excellent. And if Eric, who is arguing for Disney World, i.e. the Hall of Presidents, you will hear this sound.
That dance he gave old Bill the Willie, so he wrote them little Billies.
There you go.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, Eric.
It's from the Golden Horseshoe Review. Yeah, obviously.
Wonderful.
Which is it's nearby.
It's ish.
It's close.
It's several thousand miles and down
Years.
the road. Very appropriate. Okay, so those are the sounds. My first question before we get into the attractions themselves, because we already covered the history in a previous episode.
Right.
If there were to be a Hall of Presidents holiday overlay,
Oh, I forgot about this.
what would it be and why?
Santa Taft is the easy joke.
Okay, because he's already fat.
Yeah. Let me see. Holiday overlay.
He doesn't even have a beard, though.
Oh God, it would be a President's Day. It would be a President's Day overlay.
I was going to say it doesn't have to be Christmas.
Okay.
I have it. Each of the presidents, it's Halloween. Each of the presidents would wear a mask of one of the other presidents.
Ooh, I like that.
So it's still their robot bodies and faces, but they wear a different mask of
their
other
favorite presidents. Yeah,
that's right.
And most of them,
Trump.
Ironically enough, they might.
All right. Well, listener, what do you think the Hall of Presidents holiday overlay would be? What holiday would it be? And what would they do?
I think I think it's President's Day, and they're all celebrating their birthday. It's like they're all at like a Chuck E. Cheese kind of environment.
With the hats, the little cone hats, and the little blowers.
Yeah. It's full of mirth and fun. And Andrew Jackson is just like in the corner scowling, like nobody.
Famously, every president was born on President's Day.
They were.
Yeah,
that's how you know. That's how you know your child might be a president.
One of the prerequisites.
President's Day.
And yes, it is on a different day every year. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the bulk of the show, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to begin with
got to do a show now.
Great moments with Mr. Lincoln and Dan. So Dan, tell us about this attraction.
Well, this attraction, as we talked about, started at the 1964-65 New York World's Fair, and it eventually, the fair ended, and they were like, let's bring this thing to Disneyland. And so they did. The original show was kind of as far as I can tell, I think it was basically the same thing. But they had in the pre-show, there were paintings that represented Illinois, accompanied by the state's song. It was narrated by Roald Dano and Paul Frees. Let's see. I don't know. I mean, it came to Disneyland. They put it in the Opera House. I kind of covered it in the previous episode.
Yeah, you did.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think.
Give me clips.
Okay.
Which one? What am I playing?
I'm not playing clips yet.
Okay.
Okay. So the show, it changed. I get what you're trying to say. I get what you're trying to. Sorry, we had an hour of like insanity, which I loved, and it was very funny. But I'm totally. I'm
so embarrassed.
About what? You're fine.
So the original show. The original show opened July 18th, 1965. They carried over from the World's Fair.
What was it a part of, Dan?
What?
What was it part of? The celebration?
It's part of the 10th. I'm going to guess 10th anniversary.
Tencennial.
Tencennial. It was located
Learn the words, Dan.
Disneyland's Main Street Opera House. They used to be a lumber mill. The focus was solemn, inspirational. It was a presentation of Lincoln's words and leadership during the Civil War. It was the first fully realized human audio animatronic, first major use of hydraulics in an animatronic figure. And hydraulic fluid is what color once again?
Green.
It's red, yeah. So the reason I keep asking that is once upon a time, I believe it was for the original World's Fair show, he sprung a leak and looked like he was bleeding, and it was really gruesome. And so some people, let's just say for fun, that some people who were there when Lincoln was shot, and it was traumatizing for them. I don't know if that's true or not, but let's go with it.
Okay.
So they then they changed, in fact, the hydraulic fluid color to clear.
So Dan,
yes.
both of you, here's how I'd like to handle this. Because we already covered the history, right? There have been multiple iterations of each of these shows.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's okay with you, if you're prepared for this, I'd like to have Dan do the original and then Eric do the original and then Dan do the next and Eric do the next. Does that work for you both?
I like that.
Oh,
so for example,
original.
Disneyland's original version was 65 to 73.
Right.
So you do that, and then Eric, you can do 71 to whenever. Are you prepared for that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, great.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that the Great Mr. Lincoln started out, the pre-show had display cases with historical artifacts, including a scale model of the Capitol, which is still there today. Yeah. There was
16 feet long
memorabilia. What's that?
It's 16 feet long, that one.
And early Lincoln portraits. There was a short documentary about Lincoln's life and presidency. The narrator has been historically Paul Frees, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that changes. And Royal Dano has been, I think, all but one iteration has been the voice.
Yeah, we've talked about Paul Frees. I'm sort of infatuated with the man's talent. He's the narrator for Mr. Lincoln. He's a lot of the pirates and Pirates of the Caribbean. He's the narrator for Haunted Mansion. He's the Burgermeister Meisterburger and Grimsley from the Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Also Ludwig von Drake.
Von Drake, that's right. He did a lot of Disney. He's a tremendous voice talent.
Right. So let's see. The tone was solemn and respectful, emphasizing Lincoln's struggles. You go into the lobby area, you see all that stuff. Then you go into the main show where we see a composite of Lincoln's writings, ending with the Gettysburg Address. And like I said, it was delivered by Royal Dano, whom Walt really liked. It was carefully scripted to reflect Lincoln's wisdom and leadership. The animation, Lincoln stood up, just his coat gestured while speaking, and he sat down. Hydraulics powered it. At the time, it was the smoothest human animatronic motion attempted. Some early performances had Lincoln standing mid-speech or moving stiffly. The technology was still kind of, young. Guests exited through the lobby, which featured more historical displays about Lincoln and his presidency.
Can I interject real quick? Yep. There are two quotes that were on the exterior of the 64 World's Fair, and this one I'd like to read. One of them is, "Our defense is in the preservation of the spirit, which prizes liberty as the heritage of all men and all lands everywhere." That's in the main show.
Right.
This one is that Abraham Lincoln quote, "As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. This expresses my idea of democracy. Whatever differs from this is the extent to the difference is no democracy." Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah. So in 1973, they closed it down for a little bit to make some changes, and one of these changes involved a little something called the Walt Disney Story, because Walt Disney died in 1966, and they were like, "Hey, maybe we should do this." So the two kind of, at least in terms of the Disneylander brain, I think the two become kind of connected, not like we think they're the same person, but just like, I think this, at least to me, this is just kind of conjecture on my part. I think adding this makes the Lincoln show kind of more special because it really points out that, like, okay, here's this person who did these things and who made these innovations, and now we're going to go see one of his biggest innovations.
That's right. And Lincoln being his favorite president and something
Right.
he admired as a child in Illinois. It's very much linked, and it could also be because it's what I grew up with. But
Yeah, well, it could be that too. But at least from that point of view, I do feel like it's almost like Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln is an extension of the Walt Disney story or a continuation of it. But anyway, they paid tribute to Disney. They had made a few refinements to the motion and the programming for more realism. But really, it was just about adding the Walt Disney story. There was a short film. It was a documentary about Walt Disney's life, narrated by Walt himself. There was a lot of footage from Marceline, footage from his early career, and a tribute to his legacy. And let's see, people seem to like it a lot, and they, it stayed for a very long time.
a fun fact:
yes.
a similar version of the Walt Disney story opened at the Magic Kingdom from April 15th, 1973 until October 5th of 1992. It was a free attraction for everyone, courtesy of the show's new sponsor, the Gulf Oil Company.
Nice.
Oh.
The speech was generally the same with a few refinements, and I think a lot of times where this comes in is you have so many takes and so many different recordings of the voice actor that you can kind of go in and tweak it, which you might have experienced in other attractions. I know Haunted Mansion sometimes has done this historically where they will like bring in other takes of Paul Frees, just adding a or something like that. Technical upgrades were improved servos for head movements, more refined hand gestures, which reduced stiffness. The guest experience was basically the same, except that with the addition of the Walt Disney story, they exit into an expanded exhibit space that had a scale model of Disneyland, original artwork and memorabilia, and some historical Lincoln artifacts. Eventually, all of those Disneyland stuff would go into the pre-show. And then they updated Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln in 1975. This was due to public demand, and it shifted to focus kind of more back to Lincoln, because I think a lot of people felt that the Walt Disney story overshadowed him, which I think it kind of always did, even after this, as I was talking about. So we have a more historically detailed tribute to Lincoln. And, there's, again, some technical upgrades. His audio animatronic was upgraded with stronger hydraulics, refined programming. A pre-show film was added to flow better with Lincoln's perspective. I think that is when they added kind of a transition from the Walt Disney story to Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. They had that film where they showed Blaine Gibson, where he holds up the mask and it's like, yes, I turned this man into a man.
Right. So to be very clear, Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln closed in 73 to make room for the Walt Disney story. So it was just the Walt Disney story for 2 years.
Is that the case?
That's the case. And so it was a good tribute to Walt Disney. The show received a great deal of public criticism because at the time, Orange County, which is predominantly heavily Republican, local residents were upset with the removal of Mr. Lincoln as he was the first Republican president. The attraction closed February 1975. That's Lincoln's birthday, February 12th, and reopened on June 12th as the Walt Disney story featuring Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln.
I see.
Gulf continued to sponsor.
So, just elephant in the room here, listener, we talked about in after hours. Because of life commitments, I don't really have all the time and capacity to do all those extremely deep dives and give you a ton of history. If you want to know it, it's out there. I think I'm focusing on this one more of like analysis and
it's all good. I just
I'm cutting
I
that.
think it was just
Yeah,
we're good. I think it was
hang on. Keep going.
I think it's sort of a famous little anecdote that Orange County, being super Republican, was upset that they took Lincoln out. They put him back in 75, which is where our story continues.
Okay. So they re-edited The speech to emphasize themes of unity and leadership. Just a few minor wording adjustments here and there. Again, kind of like this is like, it's like a different draft every time, where it's like, okay, it's basically the same thing, but we can tweak it here. We can do some things here. So as technology gets better and, more detailed, they're able to add more details to the animatronics. So, every time they shut it down or add anything or whatever, everything gets, kind of fine tuned. So again, the speech, it's still Royal Dano, but they, tweak it. They make some adjustments. And I believe if they wanted to, Royal Dano was alive still at the time, so they could just be like, hey, get in here. You're not doing anything else.
Hey, you.
Yeah. What? The Twin
Come
Peaks
here.
doesn't exist yet. Come in here. And then as they exit, guests, they see more historical displays on Lincoln and Disney and a rotating special exhibits related to American history. Next up, I have Jimmy's favorite version, which I will get into in more
before
detail.
you get there. Can
Yes.
I talk about the Muppets controversy?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
In the summer of 1990, Disneyland employees were informed that the Walt Disney Story featuring great moments of Mr. Lincoln would be closing
that's
that
right.
August.
I forgot about that.
Rumors circulated that Lincoln Show would be replaced by a West Coast version of Muppet Vision 3D, which was opening at the MGM Studios, now Disney Hollywood Studios.
Yeah.
As with the closure in 1973, a significant amount of public outcry saved the attraction. The Los Angeles Times quoted Disneyland spokesperson Paul Goldman, better Paul, "If you'd asked a few years ago, I'd have said that being a 25-year-old attraction, its popularity has passed, but there seems to be a lot of sentiment for Lincoln." Muppet Vision 3D, of course, found its way to California Adventure ever so briefly. That version closed in 2014.
Totally forgot about that. But that what that brought back for me was when I went to Disney World the first time in 96, I think. That was floating. And then when I went to see Muppet Vision, I was like, I'm going to see this thing that is apparently going to replace Lincoln. And then at the end, when they break when the theater is broken and you see into the courtyard that was the Muppets courtyard, I immediately thought, like, they're going to change Main Street to like be that. Because I was dumb and I didn't realize that they absolutely would not have done that. They would have just been like, it's from Disney World. What do you want? Eric, do you have anything to throw in here, or should I keep going? Let's
about your history. I mean,
no, just in general. Just
like, is it your turn to give the original version? Because I think Dan's kind of here's my take on it. Is the original version World's Fair to Disneyland, a brief closure, and then up to 2001 was largely the same show.
Yeah, and then it changes
speech,
significantly.
Which I want to talk about. Similar speech, similar stuff, better animatronics, whatever. But it's basically Walt Disney. It's Abe Lincoln. And then it dramatically changes in 2001. Eric, can you present that sort of original show and then any kind of stopping point for you before we get to 2001?
Oh, gosh. Well, yeah,
Your attention, please.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
We, the people. This is a new idea. An American idea. An American idea. An American idea.
the show, we've already covered some of the history of this in the previous episode, but
I don't think you actually talked about the show itself and the original iteration.
You're right. Yeah. Ultimately, this was this is a show that is it's patriotic to the utmost. I don't know. I'm more prepared to talk about like the setup
current
around.
version? The current version of the show?
Well, yeah. I mean, the current version of the show. We've got a queue. We've got.
What? No, sorry. I stopped you by asking a question. You were saying you're more prepared to talk about.
Well,
the current version of the show.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so but it's probably important to note just a couple of notes. We talked about it in the last episode, but folks, go to disneydocs.net. You can find a full prospectus of what became this, the origins of Liberty Street and Edison Square, and that what became the Carousel of Progress and One Nation Under God, which was the original idea of the Hall of Presidents. And the show opened in 71, right? Hall of Presidents opened in 71.
Yeah.
I think the original story was Abe spoke and Washington spoke, and it wasn't until the 90s where Clinton lended his voice. Since then, every president in power or in office lended their voice in a new robot, etc.
Well, and that I think
speaks
to that definitely speaks to the Clinton campaign and presidency, and at the same time, just the 90s and Disney.
Sure. So that'd be an interesting story. But the original version, the president at the time would be Richard Nixon. Is that right?
Right.
And then it would have been Jimmy Carter would have been added. Then Reagan would have been added. And then Bush Sr.
Right.
And then Clinton, which is the first voice, which is interesting to think about. Today's versions, like, of course, the president speaks, that president, but there were three presidents prior to Clinton that did not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that they wouldn't have, the leadership in Disney wouldn't have been inclined to ask them. And I think also that this leadership wouldn't have been inclined to ask those presidents. Meaning that like at the time, Clinton was like the cool, like president who played the saxophone on Arsenio Hall, even though, his policies ended up being basically Reagan.
Democrat Reagan.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so
I would argue no difference, but more charming, more hip, more willing to hang out with Arsenio Hall.
Charming,
I would say cynically.
Okay. Well,
what I
Reagan
mean?
was
Like,
charming. I don't know. I shouldn't say that.
In his own way. But I think that it fits with that time period very perfectly, that it would be like, well, why don't we have Bill Clinton speak? Well, because
that makes sense.
Because they didn't envision like a Trump speaking.
Well,
I think.
let's just go back to this and say that we finally had presidents that voiced a speech. They gave a speech that was put into their robots, and this was their thing. This was their statement for the next 4 to 8 years. This is a big deal.
And do you have those speeches?
Which one do you want?
Well, I'm just curious if you have those.
Oh, I do.
I thought you might. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing I'm talking
Bill
about.
Clinton.
Eric. All right, let's do it.
The first.
This is what I'm talking about. We talk about iterations of the show. This is what I mean.
Yeah.
I did forget also, I need to go back. I did forget to mention that they, in this iteration of the Lincoln show that I just talked about, added a certain song, Jimmy.
Bill Clinton. So here's what I'd like to do, and I get where you're going, Dan, but we're still talking about the past, so I can't give points for the past.
No, I know.
You're talking about two brothers.
So
yeah, if you want to get that one ready, just for
you know what, that's an Epcot thing, and that is not
that's not true.
Thing.
Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln. It's in there.
Well, you know what? Started out
Only after it was in the American Adventure, to be fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I want to do moving forward. Eric, you're going to go through Clinton's speech, and then Dan's going to go to, well, I guess Clinton and then Bush Jr.
I got W.
And then Dan is going to go to 2001 evolution of Lincoln,
Right.
and then we'll go back and forth with speeches and evolution. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
So Eric's going to give us the first actual recording of a president in Hall of Presidents. President William Jefferson Clinton. And you must do the accent.
No.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. It's 2 paragraphs.
4 score.
My fellow citizens. My fellow citizens, we are the heirs of the great American Revolution. As this millennium draws to a close and the 21st century approaches, let us pause to honor this very idea of America. America mirrors the world's diversity, yet it remains united in the struggle to uphold fundamental freedoms. We believe our nation's happiness still evolves from liberty, from opportunity, and from the vision of equality set forth by the country's Declaration of Independence. And today our nation stands as a symbol of freedom and inspiration to people all over the world. There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America. Mm-hmm. And there is nothing wrong with the world that cannot be cured by the ideals that America represents. Those principles have no borders, and we look forward to a day when those principles extended beyond our borders will have circled the globe. The quest for democracy must continue until all of the people of the world this is a long speech. the people of the world enjoy the freedom we must enjoy, always fight to preserve. The spirit of America is bright and hopeful today as it was in July of 1776, and we are ready to carry our great nation's experiment forward into the next millennium. Wow.
The reason I want to hear these is I'm very curious to hear the evolution of these speeches and see how similar they are. So like there was a lot about freedom, equality, happiness, independence. That was interesting. That was sort of the highlighted phrases I got or words.
Some of those words are going to be the same in W's speech too.
I'm just curious. I'd be curious to hear the contrast one after the other. So.
Despite the diversity, we still manage.
Right.
Stuff.
And open and, you know, and bringing people in, embracing
and every other
differences.
Country needs to follow our system of government.
Right. Government. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. That thing.
Anyway. All right. Well, let's, since we're not to 2001 yet, let's hear what W has to say.
W.
In the accent.
My fellow Americans.
There you go. Mm-hmm. There sure.
Mm-hmm. It's like Elvis.
When we look back on the history of this country, we see a record of almost unbelievable energy, sacrifice, hard work, of impossible dreams that our ancestors dreamed and made real. We see injustice, too, that weighs on our hearts even today. But for injustice, there has always been a voice crying out to right it. And America has always listened to those voices. We are listening today, and perhaps it falls to us, to this first generation of the 21st century Americans, to say once and for all that no child, no race, no creed, no ethnic community will ever again be left out of the American dream. Wow. Through education, through the opportunity to work, to enjoy the fruits of that work, We can enjoy every opened door, every expand the horizons of all Americans. Again and again, we return to the same simple principles: freedom, equality, the freedom to create, to prosper, to dream. Equality becomes the law in the workplace and a chance for a better life. And each time in the process, America grows stronger. The beacon of democracy grows brighter. The world with new astonishment at what free people can do. We, the people, are just getting started.
So that one also had freedom and equality. It talked about sacrifice. It talked about dreams, righting injustices. Basically, No Child Left Behind was in there.
Yep.
Expanding horizons for all. Yeah, it's very similar.
Sure.
Equality.
Yep. Yeah, pre 9/11 Bush.
That was pre 9/11. That's
kind of interesting to think, because it really is just basically No Child Left Behind, and extending that to like general domestic policy.
Yeah. But the reason I'm asking to do this is just I'm curious to see how much of their policies are reflected in these speeches. And I did hear No Child Left Behind.
Yeah.
But generally it's freedom, equality, inclusion. There's nothing about diversity per se other than righting injustices and other things. So it's kind of curious to see how this evolves. But now we go into the 2000s. That speech was recorded before 9/11. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to go back to Disneyland to, yes, my favorite's not the right word. Favorite in that I don't want it back, but favorite in that it was just glorious at the time. This is 2001 to 2005, Journey to Gettysburg.
Right. So before we get there, I need to go through basically what the 75 to 2001 show experience was like, mainly as a compare and contrast. And Eric, I hope you have two brothers ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you go to the Great Moments with Mr. Disney segment, and they say, this is his office. That's a bird. Look at this over here. And then this is a camera. And then you go over to the next segment, and they say, here's the Capitol that's built out of toothpicks. That's not true. It's not really built out of toothpicks. And then here's
Lego.
Here's a movie in which Blaine Gibson holds up a mask and says, this is a mask. And Walt Disney goes, it sure is. And then they open the doors and they say, who wants to see the thing? And then like 8 people are like, I do. And they go in and they sit down. And then the cast member who's operating the doors scolds everybody indirectly about how they will not laugh at this. They will not make weird mechanical noises.
They never said that, but I was going to say, of those 8 people, 2 of them were Dan and I.
Yeah. They will not heckle the show with weird commentary throughout
noises. Dan, would you like to please regale the audience with, as Mr. Lincoln was moving and speaking, Dan would make the following sounds. It's so much more fun. At some point, we need to get to my favorite part of the speech.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did we ever say it out loud, Dan?
No, we never said it out loud. We knew better.
So here's the line. By the way, the speech as it exists today is the same as it was before 2001.
Yeah.
It's a compilation of different speeches. Do you have that? What the different speeches are, Dan? Just out of curiosity.
I don't.
It's not necessary.
Yeah.
But anyway, Lincoln never gave this speech, right? These are all snippets from speeches he gave over the years.
It's the greatest hits.
Not including the Gettysburg Address, which we'll get to.
Yeah, we sure will.
But it's a lot about, basically what's going to tear us apart as a nation is not coming from outside, it's coming from inside.
Yeah.
And
Which is
much of
just weird. I mean, why would anyone think that, right?
It's quite profound.
Yeah.
But the actual line is, if this conflict ever reach us, it must spring from amongst us. It cannot come from abroad.
Right.
I.e., the internal struggle. If we're going to destroy us, it's going to be us that destroys ourselves.
Right.
Again, prophetic, but
I don't know what you're talking about.
I forget which day.
No, I'm done with that. I just
okay. But anyway, so
we're done with that.
If it ever reaches us, it must spring from amongst us.
Can it come from a woman?
Can it come from a woman? One of us would say it beneath our breath, and Lincoln responds, "It cannot come from abroad."
We're 10 years old.
Oh gosh,
still funny.
So the show,
anyway,
the show was basically, drum roll, and the curtains open up, and you see this screen that is barely a screen. It's more like a giant picture frame. And first time people watching the show for the first time would inevitably say to themselves, is this it? But no, it wasn't. And they would show a little thing about what was the Civil War, what was going on. And this was, I believe, an addition because they added a little song from the American Adventure.
Oh.
And it goes a little something like this.
Two brothers on their way, two brothers on their way, two brothers
written
on
and
their
recorded
way,
specifically for
one
Disneyland
blue and one wore
and no
gray.
other park.
One wore blue and one
So yes,
wore
it's totally for
as they
Epcot.
marched along
it is
the
for
way.
Epcot.
Listeners,
And I think
I'm sorry.
I'm not trying to steal credit for this at all. I'm just pointing out that in their reconsidering of the show, they were able to bring in other elements from the American Adventure. By the way, I have another. There's the alternate version of that. If you're ready. If you're not, I can vamp.
I'll just load it. Hang on.
Yeah, no, we got it. I'm giving you a heads up.
I'm trying to load other stuff. It's fine. Alternate. Yeah, if you want it now. Yeah,
sure. Let's
Here we go.
Did you know that this existed?
The Civil War tore a nation in half, from cities to villages, from families to brothers. This is a story
is the
of
Letterman,
two brothers,
David Letterman's brothers,
to fight and die for what they believed in.
You know, it reminds me of the Mighty Wind.
Blue or gray.
Oh yeah,
all were Americans.
Two brothers on their way.
Whoa.
Two brothers on their way.
Yeah, this is totally a Mighty Wind.
Brothers on their way. One wore blue and one wore gray.
Wow.
Yeah.
One wore blue and one.
I can see Harry Shearer and what's his name?
Oh, Michael McKean?
No, Michael McKean and the other guy.
Christopher
Guest.
Christopher Guest, yeah.
So good. Wow.
So yeah. So I had no idea that this was not an original song. And so then they do that, and it was effective, and it gave us an idea of what exactly the Civil War. I'm going to say something really stupid. It gave us a sort of a visceral feeling, in case we didn't already understand it, of what that war kind of did. And it left us with this feeling of like, oh no, when am I going to see the Lincoln thing? And then they go back to more speeches and paintings. It's very Ken Burns-y sort of, swiping over paintings. And then they finish that portion of it, and then the curtains close again, and Paul Frees gets on the mic and is like, who's ready to see some shit? No, it's basically they more or less, in a tone that is fitting for the presentation, say, okay, get ready, hold on to your butts, this is gonna be awesome.
Wow.
And the whole thing opens up, and you see Abraham Lincoln there sitting in his chair, And when he stands up, it's like the God choir sings. Yeah. It's cheesy, but it's
effective.
It's effective, right? So he does his little speech in which we make electronic sounds and little snippy comments, and then that's that. So that was that show.
Yeah.
Then
kind
they
of
decide,
is now too a little bit.
It mostly is that now, yeah. And then they said, you know what we need? We need to gussy up this show and make it so cool and so relevant and so hip. And you know what the kids really like? They like binaural sound.
Yes, they
and
do.
headphones.
They
and
sure
sharing
do.
headphones with people.
Yeah.
Dirty headphones. Yeah.
They came up with a little something called the Journey to Gettysburg. Now this
Not
opened
earbuds, mind. Headphones.
Headphones, yes.
The little
and now it was 2001.
foamy stuff that goes over your ears.
Yeah. So it was launched July 17th, 2001. And everyone was I remember at the time internets were happening then. And I was kind of, paying attention to it a little bit. It's like, what's it going to be? This is going to be amazing. And they promised something amazing. They're like, this is just going to blow your mind. It's going to be interactive. It's going to be like, it's going to rock your world. We're like, oh my God, I think Lincoln's going to like blow you or something. Sorry.
Wow.
That. And then, so guests are introduced to Civil War photographer Matthew Brady. And we start with a little bit, I'm going off
who, by
of
the way,
memory
is
here,
also in the American Adventure.
Right.
Oh,
right. So we get into so after the Walt Disney story, which is weird because it's like, okay, here's this new thing, but they still have the Walt Disney story. After you see all of that stuff, they roll out a rack of headphones like it's an elementary school.
Oh,
they say, come get your headphones. Do we have a headphone monitor for every group? Okay, make sure. Everyone grabs their headphones with a weird look on their face like, why are we doing this? And they put them on. They put them on. And then after they put them on, the Lincoln Keeper or the cast member gets on the microphone and says, can everyone hear me through their headphones? Raise your hand if you can't hear me. You should be able to hear me through both ears. Can you hear me clearly through both ears? And everyone nods. Maybe someone would raise their hand and they'd switch them out and they'd be like, okay, how about now?
No, I can't.
Okay.
Glenn, I can't.
This is the precursor to VR.
And then they open the doors and you walk in and you hear them in your headphones and they say, okay, come on in. You're not going to laugh at this show. It's somber and it's very important and it's very real. And then you take your headphones off for a little bit because like you're probably wondering, are they not using the speakers in the room? Nope, they aren't. It's just their headphones.
Oh no.
and then it begins. You sit down and the wackiness begins.
Now,
yes,
you are
yes, you
Private Cunningham.
Are. Yeah, they right. They give you that speech. They're like, okay, you are Private Cunningham. This is your life. This is who you are. And everyone in the audience is like, these are a lot of conceits, but okay, I'll go with you. And then they introduce you to Matthew Brady. Who is the first and most important photographer. He's basically like Mark Davis of photographers.
Of course. Best ever.
Yes. And he's like, okay, hey, welcome to my studio. And there's, there's some pictures that, Ken Burns style float along on the screen, but it's mainly an audio experience. And he comes up like, hi, I'm Matthew Brady. I'm going to take your picture. This is very important. I love you very much. You are Private Cunningham. Hello, Private Cunningham. I'm Matthew Brady. I'm a photographer. Let me just blow some things off of you here. Okay, hold on. Okay, you got that. Okay, now let me kiss you. Hold on, there's something on your
Hang
forehead.
on.
Let me just clean up.
He's not wrong, by the way.
My goodness, I really wish I had experienced this.
I wish you had to.
He's like, hey, you know what? Before you get your picture taken, better get a haircut.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get a haircut. They go snip, snip, but they have actual scissors. Hold on.
Oh, do you have clips?
Oh,
Describing this?
You can't find anything about it.
Are you
It
sure?
has been scoured from the internet.
Yeah. You sent me a whole bunch of clips. What do you want me to play?
Those are other versions of Two Brothers in case I feel like I'm backed into a corner and I need to use
them. But yeah, so Dan, what did it sound like to get a haircut?
I don't have. Hold on. Scissors.
But yeah, so basically it was binaural sound. So it's it's ASMR or whatever, and you're cutting your hair, you can hear the it's precursor to Stitch's Great Escape, right? Or the and then, similar to the Alien Encounter,
right? Well, and then, but both less scary and more scary.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And then so he goes snip, snip on one side, snip, snip, and he's like, oh, okay, got that one. Okay. Then let me put some powder. Let me put some powder on your face. and then he says, okay, hey, before you, oh, look who's here. It's Abraham Lincoln.
Voiced by Warren Burton this time, by the way.
So Abraham Lincoln is in the room getting a haircut with you.
And you hear him. You hear him walk on the wood floor. There are flies buzzing around.
Get assassinated in the near future.
And he's like, "Oh, Mr. President, would you like for me to shove this peon out on the street so I could take your picture now?" It's like, No, I'm a very modest man. I'm Honest Abe, Hold on, let me get to know. Private Cunningham? Is that what you said your name is? Hello, Private Cunningham. It's so nice to meet you. I'm Abraham Lincoln. He's like, hold on, let me.
Oh. Well,
I'll just wait here.
My wife is on depression medication, so let's kiss now.
I'll just wait here in the corner weirdly while you get your picture taken. They get your picture taken, and then you are in combat, and that's when lights happen. You hear it in binaural sound, and there's so many things happening. So Lincoln meeting with the president, voiced by Warren Burton. Then you go into a battlefield scenario where you, Private Cunningham, is surrounded by battle, and there's red lights that go off in the corner to symbolize that battle is happening. And then you get wounded, and then many red lights happen because you get pain happening to you.
Oh no.
And then all of a sudden you wake up, and there's this nurse there, and she says, "Private Cunningham, I love you very much, and you're very important." Hold on. Let me just kiss it and make it better. oh, there's some soot on your face. Hold on.
Oh my goodness.
and so I thought you weren't going to make it. I'm so happy to see you. And all this time you see this angelic face on the screen in front of you. And it's the nurse. And then she's like, "Oh, wait, who's this? What's happening?" And then Abraham Lincoln walks into the infirmary. It's like, "Hello, I'm Abraham Lincoln. Hear me walking on the floor. Hear the flies buzzing. Here I am. Oh, wait, aren't you Private Cunningham?" And
yeah,
you don't
remember you from
respond
Mr. Brady's office.
It's because you can't. And he just remembers you from the thing. He's like, "I've been thinking about you because you're the most important person in the story." Hold on.
Wow.
And he's inspiring you, and he's saying, "You need to, I'm about to go give a very important speech, perhaps the most important speech of my lifetime. You may have heard of it. It's called the Gettysburg dress. You know, that one hit song that I did.
Oh gosh. Oh my goodness.
You should come with me as my guest. And you do.
Dan.
Wait, back to the haircut.
Yeah. There we go.
Oh.
Listener, I'm only joking a little bit about some of these details.
Very little.
Then you go see him speak.
Oh, wait, but before you had to get your leg amputated.
Oh, that's right.
Oh no.
So then you presenting him go to see him deliver the Gettysburg Address. At where? Gettysburg? No, just this weird, like, nebulous
pavilion
space.
in an empty space.
Yeah. And he's communicating, and though his mouth is moving, he's apparently communicating with you telepathically because you hear him binaurally inside of your head.
That's right.
So
slightly before you see his
Abraham
mouth
Lincoln
move.
is speaking to you through both ears.
That's right.
And if you're like me, you take the headphones off to be like, surely they're using the speakers for this, so it's not weird. Nope.
Oh my goodness.
And this version, Eric, how long do you think this version lasted?
10 years.
That's not a bad guess based on leadership at the time. It only lasted for 4 years, which I would say is 3 years too long.
Yeah,
Wow.
Lincoln, his figure got upgraded. His beard was lengthened to match his age. Also got a pair of eyeglasses.
Okay.
And a small paper in his hand.
Oh, a paper.
Yep. And it ended with
I've got this paper.
Look at my hands hold the thing. And it ended with a rendition of the battle hymn of the Republic. The audience was baffled.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
not
weird.
in the way
Why
was
would they be
intended.
baffled?
And
that doesn't sound right at all.
I wouldn't say awestruck as much as I would say confused.
Wow. They're just clapping.
Yeah.
The entire performance is just clapping.
Yeah. And then in 2005, it closed. Lincoln closed altogether.
Yeah.
And it didn't reopen until 2009.
That's true.
Right? So since we're now at 2009, unless you wanted to talk about the first 50 magical years, Dan.
No. I mean, other than to just say that, like, they didn't just close it. They used the theater for a celebration of
right.
their
But
50
Lincoln was not.
magical years, which a lot of it was basically like making fun of Tomorrowland.
Oh my.
So then, since Lincoln's robot was no longer talking to you during that period, we're going to recommence with great moments in 2009. But before we do that, we have to then hear about the newest president, 2008, which was Barack Obama and his speech. Unless you have anything else, Eric.
Oh, well, here's Barack Obama's speech. The American dream is as old as our founding, but as timeless as our hopes. It is reborn every day in the heart of every child who wakes up in a land of limitless possibilities, in a country where we the people means all the people. We may come from different places and believe different things, but what makes us American is a shared spirit, a spirit of courage and determination, of kindness and generosity. It is a spirit grounded in the wisdom of the generations that have gone before us, but open to the unimagined discoveries and possibilities on the horizon that lies ahead. Let us enjoy it, cherish it, defend it, and pass it on to our children as the bright and beautiful blessing that it is, this enduring American dream.
So that one was about the American dream reborn every day, we the people, diversity, the spirit, kindness, wisdom, generosity.
Yeah.
So, generic, right?
You know, yeah. They're all kind of generic, but yeah.
He didn't say anything about. Well, I think W had a little bit about No Child Left Behind, which is a little bit about his,
there
platform.
was some policy,
But there was nothing about freedom or inequality
or drones,
equality.
Sorry,
what's that?
Nothing.
But American Dream is kind of a thing, but there was specifics about diversity, that sort of thing. But yeah, it was fairly generic and bland, right?
Yeah, kind of.
All right. Yeah. So, Eric, I don't want to cut you off, and I don't want to take away from what you've done. So I'm just progressing with the show, and if there's something I'm skipping over, stop me.
What do you want to skip over?
Well, I'm going chronologically. Now we're in 2009 with the Disneyland Story presenting Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln. Which is basically from 2009 until today.
While we're waiting, let's go ahead and listen to clip 1.
Oh, I was going to say I'll play the intro to the Hall of Presidents, but
that would be good too.
Yeah, here, whichever. While I bring up clip 1, which is the intro to your thing. I did bad at that. Now it's just playing in my headphones instead of yours.
Oh, just like the show.
Yep.
You're really trying to live this Journey to Gettysburg show.
My goodness.
So to finish out this episode, I'm not saying we're closing, but just now we've kind of gotten
we're long from being done with this episode.
We're the Disneyland version. We're kind of up to modern day. So now is like point time, right?
Okay.
So get us to modern day, however you need to get there, Eric, so we can start discussing which is a better attraction. Which I don't know if we're going to get there. I can't imagine.
Well, here's an intro to the Hall of Presidents.
Great.
It is 1783, and the smoke is clearing in the wake of the Revolutionary War. Over the course of 8 grinding years, General George Washington has led a force of shopkeepers, farmers, and Native American allies to victory over the greatest military power in the world.
So we're talking about how America was awesome and diverse against the Brits. Here's what Dan has to go against this argument.
It's not to go against.
This is not a criticism. I don't know what this clip is.
I'm just.
Oh, delightful.
Two brothers.
Here's another version of Two Brothers, sung by an internet person. So,
one more blue and one more gray.
When the beat drops, it's amazing. So then we get to Disneyland Story, the Disneyland Story, not the Walt Disney Story, presenting Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln. Reopened in December 18th, 2009. I believe that this was also kind of when Disney decided that, like, okay, Walt Disney might not be the IP to go with anymore. Maybe Disneyland itself is. This is about that time that they started theming things to Disneyland, like the hotel and everything. So it has exhibits of Disneyland's history. And it also had a shorter version of the film that they used to show in the theater featuring Steve Martin. They added a new animatronic figure.
Wait, Stephen Martin?
Mr. Stephen Martin.
Stephen Martin. Okay.
A new animatronic figure delivering the speech that blends excerpts from his autobiography and the Gettysburg Address.
Stephen Martin delivering the Gettysburg
Stephen
Address.
Martin was only in the video for Disneyland. This was it's basically it's essentially the same show that we talked about, and you don't wear headphones. You just have to use the speakers like a loser, and it's basically just a return to form in a lot of ways. Now it is closed currently. Because they're going to build them a Walt Disney
a new Walt thing. Okay.
Yeah. And apparently it's going to be on a turntable so that it can be the Walt Disney Good Time Chuck E. Cheese Magic Band Hour, some part of the day, and then Lincoln the other part of the day. This is certainly a discussion to be had if we want to have it, perhaps on another episode, perhaps on this one. I'm predicting that the Walt Disney animatronic lasts a solid year at the most. And then they figure out that they are tired of telling people not to go up on stage and get their picture taken with Walt Disney.
Okay.
And they are also tired of hearing people complain about how Walt Disney wouldn't have allowed himself to be an animatronic, even though he probably absolutely would.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think they've already announced that it's going to be a year of Walt only, and then it'll rotate.
I don't think it's going to rotate. I think it's just going to be Lincoln. And I think that the Walt thing is going to be back there for like special events.
Hey, do you know who the Hall of Presidents has?
Calvin Coolidge.
Okay. Now,
just saying, we have more.
So this is why you had so many audio issues. Now
was
I
it worth it,
understand.
Eric? Was it worth it?
I think
was
it
it worth it?
I think it was.
Is it worth it, listener?
Yes.
Let's listen to Chester A. Arthur's name again.
Chester A. Arthur.
Okay.
Chester A. Arthur.
You might hear that.
Yeah, 3
you might hear
times.
that as a point sound at some point in the near future.
No,
speaking of points,
we're not doing points.
I think we've gotten to a point where I mean, for the listener, for myself, I need to figure out which one of these is better. So let's start arguing for why your attraction is better than the other. Is that a thing? Are they just too different from each other to even be compared? Why is Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln better than Hall of Presidents? Why is Hall of Presidents better than Mr. Lincoln? Go.
Okay, hang on. Before Dan says anything.
And again, I don't want to take anything away from your research. Tell me about your research. But let's get to the point.
We're at the end of my research, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, before Dan impugns himself here.
Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Okay.
Which is famously the most Disney president.
It's true.
That we discovered last year.
True.
I think my argument actually kind of goes in a similar direction.
What, Franklin D. Roosevelt?
It's a similar sort of thematic.
How about
thing.
this one?
James K. Polk.
While we're doing this, why don't you play clip 2 if you have it?
I do have clip 2. Hang on.
Okay. Jimmy, here's one of many reasons why.
Here's a Dan argument.
Okay. All right.
For the love of God. Okay.
Are all of your clips 2 brothers?
All of the clips, all the ones labeled clip, yes, they are. So, okay.
Now, go ahead. Sorry.
So, Eric, please get the closing statement file ready, and whenever
Do
you're
I
ready
need to get clip 3 ready before the closing statement?
No, that's going to be comedically after the fact, I think.
But I do want to acknowledge, Dan,
yes,
that I appreciate how much I love that song. And how much effort you put into doing that for me.
Right.
I want to acknowledge that.
Okay. So
right, continue.
Okay.
All right. Here's Dan's closing statement.
Okay. Just leave it. It's going to be quiet at first. I think that in terms of appropriateness and being fitting, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln.
You son of a bitch.
Fits the space that it's in and the time that we find ourselves in. Perhaps more fittingly than the Hall of Presidents. Sure, the Hall of Presidents is a spectacle, and it is a realization of a dream that the Imagineers once had. But what has become of the American dream? The American dream leads us to a place where we find ourselves wondering what the American dream is. I would argue that the Hall of Presidents would, in fact, be the better and more fitting attraction had they had never crossed that line, allowing one William Jefferson Clinton to speak in animatronic form, hence opening the door, setting us a precedent to future generations of presidents who may be controversial, may be loved, but in our current setting have become increasingly divisive, regardless of our American journey.
That was well timed. You know what I have to say about this?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you have to say, Eric.
Jimmy?
It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Here's what I have to say.
Talk away, buddy.
Here's what I have to say.
William Howard Taft.
Okay, I'll counter you with that. Play clip 3, please.
Richard M. Nixon. We, the people. This is
I don't remember that president.
An American idea.
Oh, because that was the original version that ended with Nixon. By the way, listener, listen to Spectral Radio because he has that version, the entirety of the original Hall of Presidents that ends with Richard Nixon. It's so jarring when you're listening, not knowing what version. Last president, Richard M. Nixon, like the end. Like,
Richard M. Nixon.
Yeah, it's like, okay, and Jimmy Carter.
We're done.
No. Okay, so Dan, I want to hear more from Eric, but
yeah, while we're doing this, Eric, if you could just get clip 3 ready.
Oh no!
I
think you nailed it.
Hang on, I got to find out what clip 3 is.
So, but really, my argument is essentially that like it works well as a thing to have in the Opera House at Main Street at Disneyland. Mm-hmm. Because it is tied to Walt Disney.
It's Walt's Park.
It's Walt's Park.
It's Walt's childhood hero.
Yeah, his childhood hero.
It's Walt's first robot, the first robot human ever.
His accomplishment, it symbolizes, I mean, forgetting the Lincoln aspect of it. If one of the first things of this type that he did was, I don't know, Immanuel Kant or something, it would still be like, wow, he really liked this guy. And this was an innovative thing. And yeah, it's not the most fitting thing, but some would argue that if you're going to celebrate the life and the achievement of a figure like Walt Disney, an American icon, an American dreamer, an American, some might say hero.
Original.
An American original. Oh, sure. You might want to go with Colonel Sanders or perhaps Orville Redenbacher or even Little Debbie. But
why am I helping you?
Is Little Debbie actually a real person? I say to you,
is she really little?
She is actually big Deborah.
She's 7
after
feet
eating all
tall.
her cakes. After eating all her cakes.
She's very fit, but very large.
Swole. Swole Debbie.
No, but I think
she can bench Dan.
She benches Wendy on a regular basis.
Oh my God. All right.
So why am I on the what is this show? All right. Dan, what is clip 3?
Well, hold on. Let him get to his point.
Okay, get to your point.
By the way, you've already made your argument, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And I just want to, I do think that I mean, without getting into a political place where I'm talking about where I get into how like the presidency should not be as big of a deal as it has become, whatever. We're not going to have great moments with Mr. Congress, right? It's still a thing. I think that we are living in a consequence of no matter who goes to see the Hall of Presidents now, no matter who the president is, half the
audience is going to be upset.
I don't want to get it into the half. And I don't believe it's actually half and half. A third of the audience is going to
sure, that's fair.
Violently hate it, and the other third is going to like love it to an extreme degree, regardless of who the president is.
That's right.
And that's not a problem with the show necessarily, as much as it is a symptom of where we are now.
Yeah.
But that's the argument we're making is where we are now, right?
Right.
We can only argue for today. So I want to say something before I get back to Eric. It was, you nailed it intentionally or unintentionally. You nailed it when you said the bit about Bill Clinton lending his voice.
Right.
I believe everything you just said. Well, at the end of the day, everything you just said. The Matterhorn is the spiritual successor of Expedition Everest. They did it better. Guardians of the Galaxy is the spiritual successor to Space Mountain. They did it better.
Mm-hmm.
Hall of Presidents is the spiritual successor to Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln. And technically, Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln is really just the first iteration of Hall of Presidents.
But in order to do that, you have to ignore what Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln is, like in terms of like its connection to Walt Disney and the company and innovation.
But those are nuances to argue for why Lincoln is better.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, based on those things, Eric, can you argue that Hall of Presidents did Lincoln better?
Okay. Dan, what is clip 3 before I play it?
Two brothers.
Let's play it.
Oh, fuck. I don't know. God.
Two brothers on
another.
Two brothers on
I had these in the chamber just in case Eric was really beating me up in the argument, and I would just be ready to go. Be like, hey Jimmy, listen to this.
It's another Two Brothers.
But Eric, do you get the point? In that what Dan said is exactly right. The trouble with the Hall of Presidents today is our political climate,
right,
and the divisive nature of our political climate. Because, by the way, because of the 24-hour news media and how it's a business that needs to sell fear, because of social media and the algorithms that are driving divisiveness, they're driving hatred, they're driving fear. And whatever it is that you subscribe to, it's going to come to you. Like your belief systems are going to be continuously driven to you. You don't have to find your truth. Your truth is going to find you. Because of our society today, Hall of Presidents will be divisive.
Okay.
As an example, here, I'm going to pull up my Truth Social and I'll tell you.
Oh, Jesus. All right, go ahead, Eric.
Damn it. All right. Here are the things that make the Hall of Presidents. I barely talked this episode.
Sorry.
At this point.
Hey, listen, not for a lack of me going to you to make arguments.
Okay.
It's not that you didn't have an opportunity. I kept giving you opportunity.
Yeah.
And here we are.
I thought it was funnier to have Dan talk.
All right, go ahead.
But anyway. Okay. Outside of the building, we've talked about Liberty Square before. You've talked about this with Jason. You tried to make an argument, and
I still contend that Liberty Square is better than New Orleans Square.
I completely agree. I don't know who made that argument. That
I did. Jason was the host or the judge,
Yeah,
I believe.
I think Jeremy
argued for New
swayed
Orleans.
him. Yeah,
No, that was
for
Eric, Dan swayed him.
I
Sorry.
To be fair,
Yeah.
I knew that he would probably go in that direction, but I do also legitimately think that New Orleans Square is better.
New Orleans Square is not
different.
better. Okay, well, we'll get back to that someday. Liberty Square, great stuff. Things that are in Liberty Square. 1787 is the date laid out above the second story of the Hall of Presidents. 1787. Okay. We got comments on that? Okay, no.
We covered it in that episode. That's the
Okay.
But is that a Liberty Square thing or a Hall of Presidents thing?
That's the
Liberty
Hall of
Square
Presidents.
thing. Okay. Well, it's over the Hall of Presidents building, which is sort of Independence Hall.
Yeah.
But Eric, go ahead. Why is 1787 important?
1787 is important because that's when we signed the thing, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. You know.
What thing is that?
I don't know.
Contract. The alimony papers.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows what that thing was. Let's see. Vintage muskets leaning against a window on the second floor. That's a thing. Huh? Why do I feel like I'm playing Jimmy Grasps at Straws?
I don't know.
Okay, let me. Skip
I could argue
past
for
all the facts.
So, but what you're doing here, I could get into, if I cared to do more research about this, I could get into the Opera House and
it's irrelevant is what I would say as the judge. And 1787 was the Constitutional Convention, but
that was the thing that they said. Yeah.
So, but no, seriously, just again, to spare the audience, to spare myself, here's my stance right now is Hall of Presidents is not better than Lincoln because of everything I'd mentioned about why it's divisive. If they change this attraction and they don't have the current president speak and they go back to the original iteration of this thing, which is about the office of the president, what its meaning, what its significance or whatever, and have the founding fathers speak to what the intention of this country and that office is, let's just assume that's what happens.
Okay.
Why is Hall of Presidents better than Lincoln?
All right. So,
because if it doesn't do that and it goes to the current president, does a speech, whatever it is, generic, freedom, whatever.
Okay.
It's still, to Dan's point, a third of the audience isn't going to go see it.
Yeah. Generic speech. Yeah. Not great. All right. So inside the queue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here we go.
Going into the actual building, George Washington's steel dental instruments, John Adams' pocket watch, chess pieces given to James Monroe by Thomas Jefferson, the works of Lord Byron, a copy of the book owned by Abraham Lincoln himself, Teddy Roosevelt's riding crop and boots, Herbert Hoover's fishing license, George W. Bush's cowboy boots, gowns worn by first ladies, gowns. So we've got a little museum piece that isn't. I mean, no offense to the Lincoln piece, but these are actual historical pieces of American history instead of
and specifically presidential history.
Presidential history,
in the lobby as a entry point museum,
right?
You're saying Disneyland's version has got stuff about Disneyland,
right?
Walt Disney, etc.
Yeah,
whereas the Hall of Presidents has things about the American president and its office holders and their spouses, and so you have actual historical presidential items, including the only presidential seal that is allowed outside of Washington.
Yes, indeed. You beat me to the punch there, where it's on the actual floor. It's the presidential seal. It is, like you said. Well, there's no reason to restate it. But yeah.
No, but can you elaborate? Like, is that true that it's the official seal of the American president, the only one that's allowed outside of Air Force One and the White House and whatnot?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that is, to me, that's
it.
worth a point.
Okay.
I think that's very cool.
That dance he gave old Bill the Willie, so he wrote them little Billies.
I feel ridiculous doing that now, but yeah, it's not a thing that you can. This is one of the few places in America where you can have. I mean, Liberty Square itself is. We've got a Liberty Bell. But,
yes, but we're not talking about that.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. But yeah, like
we've also got a petrified tree in Frontierland.
Oh,
so.
Yeah. But this space is one of the few places in America where you can have the presidential seal.
Yeah, it's very cool. Give you a point for it.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's probably worth saying. Well, we'll get to it at the end. Okay, Dan, do you have a counter?
I guess my only counter is on the positive side for Hall of Presidents. I think it's cool that they have that for like international visitors, so they don't they can be like, hey, it's presidential crap. I don't need to go to Washington D.C. because I could see the presidential crap here. I think embedded in some of that argument though is in terms of the like versus part of it, it's the fact that they have a place to showcase things, artifacts related to Disney, Walt Disney, and Disneyland in that pre-show area. It's not negated by the presidential crap because it's not like they say it's Hall of Presidents Light featuring great moments from Mr. Lincoln.
But Dan, the name of the attraction is the Disneyland story presenting great moments of Mr. Lincoln. So it's doing what it's saying it's doing.
It's doing exactly what it says it's going to do.
Right. So nothing against it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's nothing against that.
And it's a place to showcase that they can do what they can swap things out. They can change it up. It can be like a living document, like they say. It maybe should be more so, but like they can bring in now. Here's artwork connected to this attraction. Here's artwork connected to this. Here's some things that about this part of the history that we want to explore more. It can be more of a curated experience when they allow it to.
There's incredible artwork in the Disneyland attraction.
Right.
I will allow that. Like that. It's
will you?
So cool. Hey, this is a legal show or something. I don't know. It's so cool to see the models and to see the paintings and then to see the video about Walt saying, "Hey, we hired this guy Royal Dano to do the voice." And like that's cool stuff.
And you have the bench, the bench when the earth opened up and the fires of hell were engulfing everything in Griffith Park.
Right. Well, that's that's dumb.
Which is the Disneyland story. That is part of the attraction.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so then, Eric, do you have other actual arguments before I kind of give my summation?
I do have some additional arguments. I mean, this attraction is about the idea of being a president. So in the narration, it's his final. So talking about George Washington, his final act may be the most important of all. After 2 terms with no term limit in the Constitution, he steps down and gives the power back to the people.
Yeah.
This is presenting the idea of Washington as an idol for as icon, maybe not idol, but an icon for our country. Then we go to Lincoln, where Lincoln gives the Gettysburg Address in this presentation. Teddy Roosevelt gives some love. He's the leader of a progressive and naturalistic movement, creating our national parks. They specifically call him out as an influential president. FDR gets additional attention as the leader who brought us through World War II. And then we end with, what we need most from our presidents is a guiding vision that calls forth the best of what America can be. Then we talk about Kennedy, LBJ, Reagan, Clinton, Bush, Obama. They're all speaking about peace. The curtain rises 16 minutes into this presentation. We've been sitting watching this.
That may be a point against, but go ahead.
Well, we're watching this expansive, like, curved screen showing the history of our nation, and after 16 minutes, the curtain rises, and we have an animatronic of every single frickin' president, and they all
get introduced one by one. Do you have an example?
Rutherford B. Hayes.
Okay. What I like about it is that, and I was telling my friend that we talked about earlier, is that each one of these individual robots are reacting at all times.
Right.
They're moving, they're responding, they're maybe
looking
not breathing,
at each other, they're conversing, even if it's
their
not
heads turned
verbally,
towards the whatever person's being So Eric, everything you said is 100% valid. And by virtue of what you said, I agree that Hall of Presidents took the Lincoln concept and made it better.
Can I add something here?
Okay.
Only if I can add something after you.
Oh, for the love of God. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
So it is certainly a more impressive feat.
It is quite impressive,
display.
yes.
I need to choose what I'm going to say, like, Lee.
Yes, choose that well, Lee.
So we've talked before about, sort of divisiveness and problems and things about the country that may or may not be problematic. And I want to make this clear. This is regardless of who is in the office. Again, the presidency, it's taking away the idea that this is an impressive show. All of those things.
And it's about the presidency.
The Article 2
a particular
office.
President.
Right. It's about the presidency. But if you look at what the presidency has become over the years, and again, regardless of who is in the office, it has become an outside. It has been given outsized power compared to what it was intended to have.
Okay.
And
that's correct.
I think that this show and the focus of this show kind of contributes to that problem.
Okay. So here's I'm going to close it up.
In terms of
before you close it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Former President Biden.
You can do a speech? Oh, we didn't do those speeches, did we?
Yeah. His speech is, I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States.
That's it.
Right.
And
that's the way to do it.
And I will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. That was his entire speech.
That's the way to do it. With our current climate, that is the way to do it.
Well, and I would also say that.
Wait, did you want to do? By the way, we haven't done Trump's. By the way, we should. Just for Confucianism.
Wait, was when was he president?
Okay. Do you have it?
I don't.
If you don't have, that's fine. Okay. Here's the deal. Here, I'm going to close it up because it's time. Here's my summary. I believe that the Hall of Presidents, as a successor to Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln, is a better experience. It's a better show. It's more impressive. The grandeur, the atmosphere, it's very consistent. It's in a replica of Independence Hall, the 1787 of it all.
Right.
All of those things. I believe that Hall of Presidents is a better attraction. However, the Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln, the Disneyland story featuring Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln is for everyone.
I do have Trump's speech. I'm sorry. It's to all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and sesame seed.
Great moments. The Disneyland story presenting Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln is a show for everyone, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's a living sort of historical thing for Disneyland, which is interesting for people going to Disneyland. The Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln thing. Lincoln is not a divisive figure, right? I'm sure people hate him still or whatever, but in general, he's a divisive figure, or not a divisive figure. Hall of Presidents, in its current iteration, is a divisive attraction because of all the things that I'd mentioned, 24-hour media, blah, 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 blah. So, this court will lie in recess until these two attractions reopen. At that point, we will discover how they handle the current commander-in-chief. Will he speak for freedom? Will he speak for equality? Will he speak for the sacrifice of the history of our great nation? Will he speak for happiness and freedom for all? Will he speak to we, the people, to our diversity, to our spirit and our kindness, to our wisdom and our generosity? Or will he be a complete blowhard? If the current new iteration is either the current commander-in-chief does not speak at all, or the current commander-in-chief just recites the oath of office, then the Hall of Presidents is the supreme attraction. Until that time, this court stands in recess.
We should have this audio ready for every episode.
I don't think we could have done that any better.
It's important to note that none of that was planned. None of that was rehearsed. But seriously, yeah, that's it. The court's in recess. There's no decision.
And
I got to find out what happens.
And I would love it if when it returns, it's like, okay, look, stupid. Here's how the Constitution is actually supposed to work.
Yeah. I would love that.
That would be awesome.
The people.
That's right.
This is a new idea, an American idea.
And I think also...
of a president.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, listener, if you're still listening, it's important to note that the third of maybe a third of you are big fans of the current president. Maybe a third of you hated the last one. Whatever it is, that's not what this is about. It's not about Trump. It's not
I'm
about,
only upset with the middle third of you.
That's right. It's not about.
Dang it, Dan.
The reason I'm saying that the Hall of Presidents currently is not better is not because of the individual in the office, but rather because of our society and the divisive nature, and that the current iteration is not for everyone. The current iteration of Great Moments in Disneyland is for everyone. But Hall of Presidents is better if they make it back to this is for everybody to come and enjoy or be bored by or whatever. So I genuinely mean there's no winner. We are going to adjourn this session until these things are fully operational, and then we'll have a brief little kind of caveat addendum, whatever, and I'll give my final verdict on which is better.
William Howard Taft.
Okay, fine. Hall of Presidents wins. I'm joking. All right. Well, okay. Thank you both for all the time and energy and effort put into this. Again, like always, I didn't know what I was going to think moving forward. I had to actually think to myself when we were going through this for the last couple hours is, God, which one of these is better? And then Dan made the point in his speech about Clinton having his voice, and that triggered like, you know what? That's the problem, is the current president is talking. And it wasn't a problem with Clinton. It became more of a problem with Bush. Then it became more of a problem with Obama. Then it's devolved to a point where people don't go see this show because of the fact the president is speaking.
Just like how like people now don't have debates because they want to, okay, let's arrive at some understanding of where you stand.
Let's have
it's
discourse.
Why you're wrong.
Yeah.
It's why you're wrong is the only thing. Huh. So anyway, as a sort of a personification of that problem, that's why I have a hard time with it. So Concierge is a vacation planning service. It's 856 Our Ears. And if you want to plan your trip to see either of these attractions, Hall of Presidents or Great Moments, call 856 Our Ears. And Jason from Ears Up booked a trip with his family to Disneyland Hotel in one of the villas. They go early March. We're very excited about that. If you want to send anything to them as a gift, by all means. We have our silhouettes we need to send. And then also there are other podcasts on the channel. Ears Up is the quote unquote main show. You'll hear Eric there along with Jason and Taryn. Puny Pod is about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They are quite entertaining, detailed analyses of those movies. The Star Wars show, the Bantha Milk podcast. We are going to record and release the next episode of Scraping the Vault. It is Dealer's Choice, the final episode of Dealer's Choice. It is Hot Frosty. Hot Frosty will be the February/March release. What's that, Dan?
They've been waiting for it.
You've been asking, we've answered. So listen to Scraping the Vault as well. And then I have one more question that I'm going to pose after we're done with the episode. In the meantime, now more than ever, be kind to each other. Be kind. We're all people. We're all people. We're all humans. You take our skin off and we all look the same.
Gross.
We're all people. Don't take your skin off, by the way. Listener, don't take it off. But if you did and everyone else did, we'd all look the same.
If you did happen to take your skin off, put it back.
Put it back and look in the mirror.
Yeah, put it back and rewind.
Anyway, be kind to each other. And until next time, court is adjourned. Okay, so here's my question.
Yeah.
They go through, currently, there are 45 men who have held the office of the President of the United States. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Because now 47, this is his second time. And
Supreme.
Grover Cleveland, twice. Right?
Richard M. Nixon.
Nope, not him. So Grover Cleveland twice non-consecutive and Trump twice non-consecutive. So that's 45 by my count. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. So when this reopens and they do the presidents in order, currently Grover Cleveland is only mentioned once, and it was with his first term. How are they going to introduce Trump?
Rutherford B. Hayes.
Twice.
Are they going to do it twice?
They're going to do it twice because
they're going to do it twice, aren't
sue.
they?
Supreme.
No, they are. 100%. They're just going to hedge their bets, and they're going to be like, just do it twice. He'll love it.
Hello.
That's it, isn't it? That's what's going to happen.
That's what's happening right now. It's just.
That's why I didn't
just
win.
give him what he wants.
Yeah.
Just give him what he wants. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Anyway, are you guys okay with where I landed there?
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah. Sorry for wasting an hour trying
it's
to
fine.
do technical issues, but
I think it made for good content. I'm sorry you were frustrated, and I'm sorry if I didn't help But I hope you guys agree.
But
let me say, I'm sorry if I made it worse. But I hope you guys agree. I hope you guys agree with where I landed with it.
Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah. For the moment.
Yeah, just for the moment. I just want to see what happens, because if they'd introduce Trump twice and he does some bullshit speech about whatever, it's just going to be worse, because it's going to be not for everybody. And that's the thing about these parks. They're meant to be for everyone. And that attraction is no longer meant for everybody. And that's not the park's fault. It's not Disney's fault. It's society's fault. But we got to argue for the times we're living in.
Yeah, back when Bill Clinton was the first one to voice himself, it was a time when no matter what, you respected the office.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And there were people upset about it.
Sorry. Dan, there were people. But yeah, like as a kid, it's like, oh, that's the president. And then you found out, like, oh, he did some bad stuff. Oh.
But they all did. I mean, Kennedy was fucking people. Kennedy, they all did bad stuff. They owned slaves, whatever. And I think also...
you're right.
You get my point.
For sure.
Not whatever, it doesn't matter, but whatever it is. Whatever the thing is. There was a scandal forever. I'm sure there were scandals for whomever.
Of course, yeah. And these are the most powerful people on the planet. And
it's just we have more information now. Yeah. You know? And because we have more information, it highlights the fact that these are just dudes. They're just people. They're just dudes that get, or she dudes, whatever, that get.
Not yet.
Never gonna happen.
Well, I mean, God, we need it. But anyway, but they're just people, and how they got to that place is through a series of whatever. But it's just people, and so the reverence to the office is dying because we have so much more information now.
Yeah, we've eroded the respect that we used to have for this office. Yeah,
the reverence is gone. Not gone. There's a third of the country who revere the office based on who's in the office, right?
Right. Well, and then on top of that, my argument is that it should have never been as revered as it has become.
Yeah, it shouldn't by nature of what it is. It's just one of us. Who just happens to be in charge for 4 years or 8 years or whatever.
And that's what Washington wanted to establish. Gosh,
that was the whole point.
Like
we don't want a king.
Where we're like, what would he have wanted?
Yeah. And we don't want a king. That's the whole point. Right. So that's again why I couldn't definitively say the Hall of Presidents is better. Then we could have the whole side-by-side argument. But I do genuinely want to not relitigate, but close this up after everything's reopened and see whatever. It could be a month from now, it could be 6 months from now. I don't know.
But it's also possible that when they reopen Lincoln with Disney, it just sucks. You know?
Or it could also suck when they reopen the Hall of Presidents with another Trump standing at the front going,
there are two Trump robots.
Generic unity message about America.
Right. I just don't see that happening.
I just hope they make them accurately buff and sexy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 6'10", the 6'2", 210.
Yeah.
The real version.
Yeah, the real like ripped Trump.
Yeah.
And the real ripped Walt Disney.
Can you imagine Walt with abs?
he just flexes and rips through his.
That's right.
That's all the show is.
Every show.
That's it.
Ah!
All right. Anyway, all right, guys. So I think we can stop.